So what we did in the beginning is we looked at what was causing our deficit. And I think, as probably Larry mentioned to you, we're looking at, almost $300 million of the deficit is cost increases that we have very little control over. Healthcare costs, increased pension costs, increased salaries which were previously negotiated. And that's the majority of our deficit. It's not like we're adding services. It's not like we're paving a lot more streets or filling a lot more potholes or hiring a lot more cops, by the way. I would just like to point out that the entire discussion of police, in order to hire to attrition next year, that's going to be about a $10 million cost. So when you hear the mayor kind of push back on that issue, when people bring up, well, we'll just stop hiring cops. Well, okay, we could do that, and then we'll save $10 million next year, but we still have a $453 million problem. And when we're dealing with, we're looking at this through the lens of services, I think, that's the consideration. It became very clear to us there was no way we were going to be able to solve the structural deficit, solve the structural problem without addressing the costs, the long-term cost curve. Second thing is that when the mayor approached this budget, we've made, we had to make some decisions last year, and we had furloughs and we had layoffs, and they had a extremely negative effect on service delivery. I think one of the lessons that we will learn after, when we write the book on, this financial crisis of, I guess when did it start, 2008 until whenever it ends, is that, we learned that furloughs are just I'm going to just use the term, they're a disastrous option. Right? I mean, furloughs take the maximum cut out of services, they take the maximum, do the maximum damage to the morale of city employees, and because the city inherently is, it doesn't, no employee in no department works in a silo, right? If you're, the Bureau of Street Services relies on transportation, relies on personnel department, relies on, the city functions, as a unit to deliver their services. And so when you have a furlough in one department, you're causing service delays in 5 other departments. And that's what you all see. And so we're saving a little bit of money, and we're taking this maximum cut to city services, and the mayor wanted to stop that this year. So when we formed our budget team, we also made a change there, and I think it's worth pointing out because it does lead to this discussion. We did make a big and significant change with regard to who was putting together the mayor's proposed budget. We essentially have an entire new team. There are very few things that the city charter actually requires the mayor to do. There's a lot of powers that the charter grants him, but there's a few things that it actually requires him to do. It requires him to give a State of the City address every year. It requires him to issue a budget every year, and it requires him to assemble an executive budget team. As part of that order, it says that the mayor can use any city department in support of that effort, because the charter defines that, the budget, as the primary responsibility of the mayor. So that's what we did. We went out and we found and recruited the most experienced financial professionals inside the city that we could find. Our budget director is the fire administrator. Her team consists of the top budget official at the Department of Sanitation, Department of Personnel, Department of Water and Power. These are people who have a lot of experience in large budgets. And the first challenge the mayor gave to them was, can you put together a budget without furloughs? Their answer was no. It would be impossible. The amount of layoffs that you would need to order to have a budget without furloughs would do far more damage to city services. It's just not an option. So we said, well, how do we get there? So what we've done, and what you will see as we're discussing the numbers in terms of healthcare savings, pension savings, the targets that we have set on this pie chart, is that we've said, all right, look, there's no way we can count on a budget without furloughs. We're going to have to put furloughs in the budget. We don't want to have another year of furloughs. So let's put together the budget the best way we can, and then determine what our savings targets are going to be per department and per employee group, and then engage labor and just open our books and say, look, here's our problem. I mean, it's not like, oh, so this is my other little, I'll get to this in a minute. You know, this Hungry Hippo, which I actually find to be kind of a strange game and I'm not sure what the lesson is that kids would learn by playing this. It's kind of, but this is basically our, you know, the metaphor for our budget process previously. It's just, you know, we got money in there, and you know, go out and get it, and people that can scream the loudest and grab the most generally win at the end of the day. But the problem is when you use this process and you got 2 marbles in the pan, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So that's the truth. So what we've decided, you know, what we're doing is we're just being as honest as we possibly can, opening the books, sharing our strategy, and saying, hey, you know, help us. We need help. We don't want to do furloughs anymore. We want to minimize layoffs, but we can't do that unless we address the more than $300 million in increased costs this year that have nothing to do with services, that have to do with the health care and the pensions and the salaries. So if you look at your sheet, you see, you know, there's a, you know, $460 million problem seems huge, right? But, so we started piecing it, taking it out. So we got, you know, we got $100 million for police, and we got $51 million for fire. By the way, that $51 million is the, you're familiar with the modified coverage plan. The department refers to it as rolling brownouts. Also, far less than optimal way to balance a budget. It is, you know, one of the principles of this budget. We wanted to restore some certainty. If we can't afford the department that we have, we should address it and not mask it by, you know, having people out of service when normally you expect them to be in service. So we have $51 million for fire. We got $100 million for police. 2 largest departments, 2 largest cuts. We got, you know, where we got? We got the coalition, $69 million. The reason that we have the coalition at $69 million is because due to previously negotiated wage increases, they were and are entitled to more than 5% raise this year. Obviously, we don't have money at all to give out raises of that magnitude this year. So we were going to furlough them as a backup to, if we weren't able to get a negotiated agreement, 36 days. And that would have an extremely negative effect on services. We want to do it, but we don't have the options absent an agreement. We have our other civilians, we have our engineers, and once you start piecing it out, and then you can just like address each issue separately, then the problem becomes a little bit easier to handle. We have asked all of our employees to pay for the first time into the pension fund to guarantee their retirement health care. Up until this point, they haven't been paying anything, and we've been providing very good retirement health care benefit. At the beginning of this discussion several months ago, you know, the mayor had to make a choice, which is, you know, it was very clear, and it's clear to everyone here, and I think even our friends in labor would concur, that you know, we can't afford what we're doing right now. Right? What we're doing right now is not sustainable. So we have basically 2 choices as it relates to the benefits. We can either reduce the benefits dramatically, or we can work with the employees to ask them to help pay for those benefits to sustain them. And that was the road that the mayor chose and asked us to pursue. So I'm going to actually stop for now, and then we'll get into the specifics in the Q&A. But that's essentially what we've done. It's essentially the strategy. In order for us to have a budget with minimal layoffs and with no furloughs, there is no other way than to engage our partners in labor, and we've been able to make some fairly good progress thus far. And I'm actually fairly optimistic that we're going to have a much better budget with much more significantly restored services this year as a result of this partnership.